Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Through the Glass Columns, your weekly Wheel of Time read-along podcast. I, of course, am Tylor, your host who knows these books and loves these books and is kind of ready to be done with this book, to be totally honest. I am joined, of course, by Greg, who is less unenthusiastic about this book because he's only read half of it. Greg, how are you feeling about the status of Winter's Heart at this point in our read-through?
I'm surprised that you're down on it this week because I thought we got a major piece
This was a
falling
better
into
read.
place this week. But so I'm a little more positive, at least this week. And I was also, when I read through this the other day, I was like, well, I can't be mad about not a lot happening because we're like not that far from being done. I mean, we're in the second half now. And I think it's become a theme for us to kind of observe that you do that kind of first round check-in. And especially with a beefy prologue, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, so we're on the downhill slide. But I don't know. I think, your comment tells me I should, not get my hopes up too much about a special thing or two happening. But there is still a lot of space left, almost a full half. So there could be something else to come. And,
To be clear,
whatever happens, we keep going.
is for the first half of this book.
All right. So I'm excited to talk a little bit. I will vague cast forward and say I definitely had a chapter in this book, and everybody who's done the full reading knows which one, where I was like, what is this? This is terrible. Why are we doing this now? And I was like, oh, awesome.
Yep, I know exactly which chapter you are describing. Now, if you haven't done all of the reading, we do have 3 chapters this week, so we're being extra vague in the intro. We'll be talking about Chapter 13, Wonderful News, Chapter 14, What a Veil Hides, and Chapter 15, In Need of a Bellfounder tonight. And as Greg is alluding to, there's some sloggy stuff and some really fun, interesting, throw the plot forward in interesting ways stuff. Is there any thoughts you have on the first chapter, kind of big picture? This is our last look into like Rand adjacent characters. So any thoughts on kind of leaving that plot line before we summarize the chapter and actually really dive into the details?
So much that I don't even remember what happened in that chapter. I was so much more interested in the second and third. So I think the big jump forward happened in that plot line last week, and so I wasn't expecting much. I think this feels a little superfluous. Who knows when we're recording? Maybe the night before this drops. But I will say we're in Spider-Man season, and I was reminded recently about how the second Spider-Man happens After Avengers Endgame as this weird little coda, we're still doing Marvel, it's still awesome. And then it's oh, that was actually the first sign of we're not doing so awesome anymore. And in some ways this chapter is the equivalent, right? Of the cool stuff happened, but there's just little, look, these kids are going to Europe on a high school trip.
Big surprise, Greg doesn't like the chapter with all the names, which I will give you all of them in Chapter 13, Wonderful News. Cadsuan holds court in the Kyrian Palace, and she has Caroline Damodred and Darlin Cisnera as captives, it seems. Verin demands that Cadsuan return her Windfinder, but Cadsuan says the Windfinder is helping investigate the assassination attempt against Rand. The 5 newly sworn Aes Sedai are all in the room as well, and Cadsuan seems baffled why they swore to Rand, and she doubts their stated reasons for doing so. We, of course, know that it likely has to do with Verin and whatever weave she was using. Cadsuan says that Tower law must be followed, and so she is unable to return the Windfinder. At this point, Cerelia and Verin enter, and Cerelia gives Verin a sleep aid, but we learn that it can also be lethal in large doses. Cadsuan then repeats Herin's threats back at her and says she doesn't care, and threatens Verin with physical violence if she continues to pester her. She then orders Verin escorted to her rooms to fast and meditate, and she knows that the order is given to an Aes Sedai who will not provide them food given that order. Cerelia says that several Aes Sedai who have had no contact with one another on the same night all asked to swear to Rand, and Cadsuan seems baffled by this, especially because many of the women who asked are of the Red Aja and seem very unlikely to go along with what Rand wants. Cerelia says the women are working to meet their toe and that they are not being punished by the Wise Ones. Cadsuan suspects that some of the Reds are likely Black Aja, but she doesn't know which ones. At this point, Verin says that she questioned Shallan alone, and she found out that Shallan and Alil were what she calls pillow friends. Cadsuan says that she is ready to return Alil now that she knows the secret, but she is not going to return Shallan so quickly because she doesn't want Hareen to think that she has won in their confrontation. At this point, Corelli enters with news that Dahmer Flynn has healed Ergrain's stilling, and Corelli asks to let Dahmer try on the other two who have been stilled, and Cadsuan agrees. At this point, Jahar Narishma bursts into the room and says that Alana has collapsed. On the way to Alana, they see Dobrain, who seems angry that Caroline and Darlin are no longer in the city, and Cadsuan says that Darlin is to be the steward in Tyr for Rand. When they arrive, Alana is asleep, and there is no ailment according to those who have tested her with healing, but Cadsuan and Verin are afraid of what this means for Rand, and they have to wait for Alana to wake until they know what is going on. I think what is going on might just be sex with Elaine, but what about the rest of this chapter? What did we think about this POV in Wonderful News? I am going to stop here, and we'll analyze the Forsaken separately.
Yeah, I also had that same joke in my notes, which is like, wow, Elaine, like blowing Rand's mind so much that, although, I think a better read on it might be the like complicated weaving that is happening to bond them all. And, I kind of like that idea that Rand is, what stood out to me is I remembered how the women were like, wow, Rand, you feel like this all the time. And it's almost like the opposite. It's like Rand has suddenly channeled 3 women's additional emotions into his consciousness. And so maybe that's overwhelming to Alana when it took her by surprise. But I mean, even saying that just now, it's a reminder that Rand's already fragile and he just took on a lot of extra people in his head, essentially, right? He's got 4 women and whatever Lews Therin is in his head.
And we just don't know the particulars of this, right? Like the type of weave that Elaine did is literally stated to be her making it up. And so there could be side effects we're unaware of. There could be effects on Alana of having other people bonded in that particular way. Like we just don't have any details. And I kind of like that we just abandon the plot line with that thread hanging. It works for me. Other than Alana, though, this is just a series of names where we get Cadsuan describing the situation in Cairhien and wrapping up a bunch of loose ends that none of us remembered were loose ends. Is there anything that stood out to you in this chapter, or should we just kind of go beat by beat and make sure we remember who all of these people are?
I would say beat by beat is obviously what I'm going to need, but in general, my takeaway is like Cadsuan is like the project manager, right? Like she's checking things off the whiteboard, moving them to the next section, like as you said, wrapping things up and helping in that regard. And I think if I remember right, Cadsuan is somebody we were wondering, is this like a new Moraine type of person?
Yeah.
And while we haven't seen any of that kind of mentorship of Rand, I think we're seeing a little bit of Moraine's capability, right? Like, just she's efficient. She knows what to do to check boxes. So help me know what those boxes were, though.
Before we do, I actually just want to add one thing on top of what you just said, which is that Cadsuan is on top of it. She is in command, and there is zero indication in her thought process that she is necessarily doing what Rand wants. And so I leave this chapter being like, she is an extremely capable leader, but is she doing this on Rand's behalf, or is there some other kind of motive that's guiding her actions? Because at least some of the things she does, I'm like, really, would Rand want all of these things to happen?
I think that seems fair and very much the kind of traditional, I don't know, I'm thinking of Game of Thrones. I'm also thinking of Disney's Aladdin, where you get like the advisor you can't totally trust, but is much more capable than the ruler. And, I don't think we necessarily need to say more capable than Rand. Rand has a hierarchy of problems he's dealing with that she can't deal with. But in terms of like the day-to-day maintenance, this is like real Tyrion hand of the king type stuff. And it works. Like, I don't know. I don't necessarily think she's doing nefarious things in the reading of, maybe these aren't what Rand wants.
No, I think that's exactly right. There's nothing here that I read and I'm like, oh, she might be Black Aja, but I read a lot of it and I'm just like, is that quite what Rand is interested in? Let's break it down point by point. The first thing that we get at the beginning of this chapter and the end is an update on 2 rebels. Caroline Damodred and Darlin Cisnera at one point had both claimed the Kyrianan throne in the Civil War. They were the two highest ranking lords who did not accept Rand as the new leader of Cairhien, and they now apparently have been held captive for some time. And at the end of this POV, we learn that Cadsuan has let them go because they are now going to be the rulers of Tyr. We learn that Darlin Cisnera is going to be the steward in Rand's in lieu of Rand. And we also know, I believe from a Min viewing, that these two have a destiny together, that I think they will end up getting married, according to what Min saw.
Ooh, hot information on that one.
Ooh.
Well, and to the point about checking boxes, it's almost like we're cooling off parts of the map that have been hot.
Yeah.
And so it's like, again, I don't know what's about to happen as the book goes forward, but it's almost like don't worry about Tyr anymore. Like it's stable. If it's not in the right hands or the best hands, I'm not sure at that level, but it's at least stable, and we don't have to be thinking about down there. And Kyrian here acting much the same way, kind of, right? Like we're cooling off Kyrian, presumably to focus more on Caemlyn.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Yeah, that's a good call. This is very much, I think I described it tying up loose ends. It's kind of like getting rid of the fuses on the powder kegs that we were worried about in some of these regions.
Well, or I was thinking of Risk, where you like move all the troops to the border. It's like we're leaving the one soldier there. We're good. We're gonna put these soldiers there. I don't know if that helps, but that's an image I can latch onto. Well, how is there not Wheel of Time Risk? I mean,
it's kind of coming. I'm very excited for this.
Well,
board
right,
game.
with this new board game, but like I continue to think one of the mistakes Amazon made is like when Game of Thrones got hot that one season, there was so much merchandise everywhere, and that got people excited. And it's silly, and maybe it doesn't matter as much as it used to, but when people see a table full of stuff at a store, they're like, oh, I wonder what that is. Like it would have been so easy to fill a table at Barnes & Noble of all the books and a bunch of tie-in merch and so on. And
totally,
I don't know. I don't understand Amazon. Maybe it was somewhere buried on their site, but I didn't see tables anywhere.
Nah, it wasn't buried on their site. I looked. Let's then move to what I think of as the best and worst of the plots in here. The reason that I say it is the worst is because when we are talking about the Windfinder and Lady Ailill, the entire plot seems to be they like each other, like more than just like each other, and that's embarrassing, so they don't want anyone to find out. Not Robert Jordan's best, most sensitive handling of same-sex relationships. That being said, watching Cadsuan just kick Harin's ass over the debate about this was so much fun. I loved it.
Yeah, and I mean, I even accepting the kind of same-sex relationship piece of it, it just felt teenagery, which, there are times when you're like, oh, it should because these are the teenagers, but then you're like, no, not these ones. Like,
not these
they're
ones.
young.
These are adults.
But, yeah, and Cadsuan's not young, but she wasn't. Anyway, so, yeah, it felt a little silly, a little, and I guess I shouldn't deny the fact that I just don't feel attached to these characters. I'm like, who are these people? Okay, they like each other, like each other, so, okay.
I think the only thing I need to note here is that this is Robert Jordan's introduction to his worst phrase he has invented, pillow friends, which seems to just mean lesbians. Just keep that term in mind, because there will be characters later on who are referred to as pillow friends, and you won't know what that means if you don't remember this reference. Hooray.
Well, I have to enjoy that the community did not embrace that. I've never heard that phrase before. And it makes me think of, I have family members in AA, and you're supposed to say, I'm a friend of Gary? Now I forgot the name. Bill, friend of Bill. So sorry. Family members who are in AA who definitely will not listen to this podcast. But that was the AA way of saying, like, if you were looking for a meeting but wanted to maintain your anonymity, you would say, oh, I'm a friend of Bill, or I'm looking, for the friends of Bill. And so pillow friend feels like something similar. So, but like a harder drug, right. Like you're into cocaine, I think.
I'll be totally honest. I think Robert Jordan just firmly believes that if you put two women alone in a room long enough, they will eventually become lesbians, and pillow friends is his word for what happens when that occurs. I don't love the way that he handles this or any related plot lines. I'm very sorry you have to experience it.
Pillow friends would obviously be Oxycontin, right? Come on.
You're
Sorry,
not wrong.
had to
Good call.
circle back to that, but yes, not particularly politically correct in our modern age, nor in the '90s when he was doing it.
Yeah. So if Friends of Bill is a way that you can talk about people who, you want to stay anonymous, but you could be getting into AA, I think Friends of Verin is something we should be tracking in this chapter. We have the 5 Aes Sedai who previously swore to Rand, and Kadsuan is very confused why they would do so. And then now we have a new set of, I think it was 6 Aes Sedai, who all simultaneously swore to Rand despite having no contact with one another. And that immediately gets my, kind of warning sign flashing. How could that have happened simultaneously if someone wasn't coordinating it? And given that we know that Verin was channeling at some of these other women before they swore to Rand, I'm immediately like, what is going on? How is Verin kind of marshaling these troops? And what's her objective by getting all of these Aes Sedai seemingly on Rand's side?
I mean, I didn't necessarily piece that together, but totally works for me that, we were kind of like, what is she about for so long? And now it's clear. I don't even think necessarily put her in the evil category, but, on her own, like not
Yeah,
to be trusted. Yeah.
exactly. And
Pursuing her own aims.
that's the weird thing here. This both feels extremely evil and like exactly what Rand would want. It's like the exact
Hmm.
opposite of what we were talking about with Kadsuan earlier in the plot. It's in line with his wishes, even though I don't think it's at all a thing that he would actually endorse. Um, the last note in this chapter, then, is it seems that Dahmer Flynn has done the same thing that Nynaeve did a few books ago. He has discovered how to heal stilling, and so we're now going to have these 3 new Aes Sedai who were stilled, who could potentially be involved in the same sort of will they, won't they swear fealty to Rand. The one quirk here is that we're told that the wise ones seem to treat these women who have been stilled as if they've already paid the price for their crimes. They don't seem to be being like treated or mentored in the way that some of the other Aes Sedai have been. So that could be a quirk as we watch what happens to these women.
But help me a little with the name again. Dahmer.
Dahmer Flynn. He is one of the Ashaman who was
Okay.
in Rand's group, but not obviously one of the ones who committed the assassination attempt. And this is actually the last group that I was going to talk about. Multiple times in this chapter, Dahmer is referred to as healing these women, and we also get later on Narishma arrives and delivers some news. And both of those make it very clear that the Ashaman who were previously very specifically loyal to Rand seem to have like adopted Kadsuan as the leader in the vacuum. She seems to be giving orders to what was previously his private guard.
And so we should assume then that this will not necessarily go back, or actually, the way you just described it, it won't go back to the full Black Tower, right? Whatever
Right.
faction is over there, this is somebody. We now have two factions that have the ability to heal stilling.
Yeah.
One would imagine the Black Tower would want that power because there are a lot of men who have been stilled over time,
Yeah.
and you could unstill them,
Technically
right?
gentled because they're men, but
Gentled.
yes.
But also, while that jumps out as something the Black Tower would want, Rand has also said, well, if he's going to fix the taint on the male power, then once you
Yeah.
fix the taint, just go grab as many dudes as you can. I mean, right? Classic phrase.
Yeah, bear
Next
week.
t-shirt.
That's how it works.
Done. So, yes. So that to me seems like a major step forward, yet it was like, wait, who already has this?
Yeah.
Right? And where are they? And especially as we know from last week that Nynaeve is kind of moving more into this plot line. It's almost a redundancy as opposed to 2 factions that have it.
Yeah, and I think the one thing you said that I do want to really jump off of is you mentioned who does and does not have this ability. Crucially, because it is a man healing these women, none of the women who have pledged to Rand know the way of healing stilling. So as we're keeping track of that, if Nynaeve had done it, they probably could have learned it from her, but they can't learn it from Dahmer Flynn.
Because essentially the men will be weaving things differently. Like the
Yeah,
power, their side of the power requires different moves or
exactly.
spells, whatever kind of placeholder word you want to put in there. So, okay,
That's
cool.
exactly correct. Any last thoughts on this POV before we quickly jump to the Forsaken, which is just name after name after name?
No.
Excellent. Demandred wants to know where Rand is while Grendel and Osengar watch Erengar snipe at a number of the Forsaken who are gathered. Demandred thinks that being a woman has changed Erengar's mannerisms. Osengar is aware of Rand's plan and says it is impossible to cleanse Sidene, but Grendel wonders out loud if the Dark One would trust the male Forsaken if they no longer had to rely on his protection to stop them from going mad. We learn that many of the Chosen died from a lack of trust by the Dark One during the War of Shadow. At this point, Moradin arrives with Sindane and complains that Mizana is missing once again. Moradin channels the true power and then has Sindane announce that Rand has the Choden Call, which seems to be the description of the statues that allow you to channel an enormous amount of power. This causes a commotion among the Forsaken, and Demandred suspects that Sindane is Lanfear. The only reason he doesn't believe that is necessarily true is because Sindane is weaker than Lanfear was. Moradin then orders that they capture or kill Rand when he touches the Choden Call, because they will all know exactly where he is. Demandred then notes that Moradin will not be there with them when they attack, and he begins to plan on how he is going to overthrow Moradin. So, hey, everybody knows what Rand's up to. What did we think here?
I mean, I was more like, again, a little lost in all the names, but I was more thinking about like Moradin is all right, so do you remember when The Rock was about to star in Black Adam and
Yep.
the ad campaign was the hierarchy of power in the DC universe will never be the same. That's what I think of when Moradin comes into the the room.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the hierarchy of power in the Forsaken will never be the same. And that's essentially what I drew from this chapter is like
Yep.
he's shaking it up and just pushing every other relationship to the side and gaining followers and apprentices and just pushing forward.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right.
Okay.
There's not too much else here, to be honest, right? Hooray, Moradin's in charge seems to be the big takeaway here. I do just really quickly want to do like Forsaken check, just make sure we kind of know where all of the Forsaken are because they are all mentioned in this chapter. Every surviving Forsaken at least gets a name drop here. Okay, so Demandred is the POV character in this chapter. We have absolutely no idea where he is. Where is Demandred is one of the great mysteries of the Wheel of Time at this point. I think at one point we had suspicion that at least one of the Forsaken could be Mazrim Taim, but like that's the closest thing to an idea we had here. Next off, we have the two reborn Forsaken. That's Osengar and Erengar. Osengar seems to be one of the Forsaken who died in Book 1, reborn as a man. Erengar is the other one of the Forsaken who died in Book 1, reborn as a woman. The big note here that we learn in this chapter is that the woman seems to have completely changed her personality upon rebirth, but is confirmed to be one of the male Forsaken reborn as a woman. We do here get Grendel. We don't have any real details about what Grendel is up to at this point. We do only get very brief mention of Mogadien. She is working for Moradin, but we don't know where or doing what. We also, oh, go ahead, please.
Having escaped from that's the one who was
That's
with
correct.
the women. Yep.
That's exactly right. We then have Grendel, I think I just mentioned. We don't know where she's at. She's a free agent at this point. And then we have Sindane, who we know now is definitely a reborn Forsaken. And our best guess, according to Demandred, is that it's Lanfear, but we're not sure why she's weaker in the power. Finally, we have Moradin. Could be a reborn Forsaken, or could simply be a completely new player on the scene. We don't have much details about him or his origin. That, I believe, is all of the kind of upper echelons of dark power, if we will. I don't have too much to add to that. I think the big revelations here are the evil guys know what Rand is up to, and we get the detail about Sindane potentially being Lanfear. What are you kind of thinking about, like, the state of the dark here? Because this kind of feels just like a quick check-in.
Yeah, I mean, just to keep it Marvel, it feels like when you'd get those post-credit scenes where it's just like Thanos being like, "Oh, okay, like I guess I'll do it myself." Like we're just
Yeah.
kind of getting a reminder that they exist and that this tier of evil is there. I think you're right that as we recounted it just now, I was thinking like, well, I imagine some of these people we actually do know where they are. Actually had me thinking about Battlestar Galactica, right? Where there's that great episode where all of a sudden they reveal who's been a Cylon. Maybe you didn't
Yeah.
watch that show.
I haven't, but
Uh
I know what you're talking about.
okay. So it feels a little like that. Like a reminder that they're out there because eventually we will reveal that hey, this one's Verin or this one's Mazrim Taim or whoever. But
Yeah.
I think it would be most exciting if these are placed in like close knit circles we don't yet really recognize as being
Yeah.
compromised.
I will just note really quickly, I think I forgot Mazana, who is also not at this meeting and is in the White Tower, but now we have a complete list of all the Forsaken. I agree with you. This feels like just we know where they're at. The only lingering question I have after this is how did they know that Rand is planning to cleanse Sidene? And the kind of follow-up question is which one of them is clearly in Rand's inner circle in order for them to have that clear of a picture of what his plans look like. I'm assuming no more thoughts from you because you said you were done. So why don't we dive into chapter 14, What a Veil Hides, aka the chapter that Greg was alluding to in the intro. This is the one that starts bad and gets good. Tuon rides a ship of the return. Seleucia shaves her head and Tuon dresses. Tuon checks her shave and rebukes Seleucia for questioning her, and they exchange barbs, noting that Seleucia has more or less raised Tuon, but despite that fact, technically, Seleucia is Tuon's property. Tuon seems upset at the Damane Lydia about a prediction that she made the previous night, and we learn that she apparently lost her temper, but now, as she goes onto the deck of the ship, she sees Lydia and she more or less treats her with candies to compensate her. We learn that Lydia seems pleased by this, and we also learn that Tuon is a Suldam and has taking care of some of the Damane on her own. She looks over her guards, including some of them which are referred to as Ogier guards. Ogier gardeners, and then she approaches Anath, who is referred to as her truth speaker. Anath begins saying that she is hiding who she is because she wears a veil, and begins more or less ripping into her, but that's the point of a truth speaker, to say things that are unpopular to someone who is powerful. Tuon ignores all of the advice, and then announces that she will look into Suroth's ambitions because she is concerned that Suroth may have tried too hard and reached too far in this new land. Tuon says that she must see the dragon as soon as possible before he knows how dangerous she is to him. Tuon, we learn, is the daughter of the Nine Moons and a high-ranking Shan who is about to arrive on the continent. Dun dun dun, daughter of the Nine Moons.
And I remembered that that's the person who's gonna marry Matt.
Hey,
It's
you
like 3
remembered
books.
married this time.
That's like 3 books ago. So
That's
yeah.
like from book 4. I think that's 5 books ago.
Yeah, yeah. So yes, this is the one I was alluding to because I was like, what is going on here? I don't care about any of this. And then you get like essentially the final line where you're like, oh, okay. So
Yep.
I would kind of broad scope say that what we're supposed to take away from this is the second wave of Shan. I don't know if that's the actual number, but the actual like
I think
settler
3rd, but
wave,
yeah.
right? Like now we've conquered a chunk of the continent. We're going to actually start to seed our people back here is coming. This person seems to be the most powerful among who's returning, at least. Maybe
Yeah,
all of society.
it's worth noting we have heard previously the Empress referred to as the Empress of the Nine Moons. So
Okay.
the presumption is that Tuon is her daughter, either the first in line for the crown or maybe lower down the succession.
And we don't know that that person is the actual Empress is coming. So this would be
Correct.
the ranking one coming to our continent as far as we know
Yes.
at this time.
I
And
do
well,
want to note here, as we're talking about that, a decent chunk of this chapter is devoted to Tuon putting on the veil. There are a couple of references to the fact that when she is wearing that veil, she is basically just treated as like a high lady instead of the highest lady. So as we go forward, we might just pay attention to the fact that she might not be treated as kind of important as she actually is.
and like nobody knows who she is at
So
all? Like
So the
when she
trick
has the
is,
veil on?
according to this chapter, when she's wearing the veil, it does not obscure her face at all. Everyone knows exactly who she is, but the cultural tradition is that if you're wearing the veil, we all pretend that you're not as like famous as you actually are.
Hmm. So it's the celebrity wearing a baseball cap out in public.
Yeah,
Kinda,
exactly.
yeah. Well, Michelle Obama used to do that, remember? She would sneak
Oh
out to
yeah,
Target, and it was like yeah, like, she's just wearing a baseball hat, like,
yeah.
and is not wearing, like, a gown, so she
It,
can kinda sneak in
every
and out.
time I see a celebrity do that, I immediately believe that Superman could have gotten away with just putting on glasses. I never recognize them.
The only one that really gets me every time is Conan. You're like, "Oh, right, he's only famous for his hair." So he
Yeah.
covers up the hair, and he's totally fine.
Totally. So the big notes here, we have this new character, Tuon. She is massively powerful within the Shan-Chan, as you're saying, probably the most powerful Shan-Chan on the continent. And then the rest of this chapter is just like a list of red flags about Tuon. She beats her slaves, who she has owned since she was a child. She also lashes out violently when Damane make predictions she doesn't like, and she solves that problem by giving them candy. Like, I kind of leave this chapter like this is a little bit a horrible person. I'm curious to see how this goes.
Well, and I probably projected her too young, but I was thinking of like, horrible, well, like Joffrey from Game of
Yep.
Thrones, or like that type of immature, like child emperor type
I
thing.
I'm trying not to over describe this character. I think I might be drawing from like a chapter from now when she's more described physically. But Tuon is described in a lot of places as being like about Matt or Rand's age, but looking substantially younger. So I think you're
Hmm.
actually picking up on something that very well may have been in the text in this chapter. She does look quite young.
Classic Tom Holland situation. Let this man grow up. He's 30 now. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. That is, so it's not totally wrong to me. I don't know why I was thinking of the really problematic Maharaja from Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, the
Oh
most highly
yeah.
problematic. But my college roommate Zach, who I think this is the only podcast of mine, Zach is like, I'm good, bro. But Zach always used to do his voice. I heard the stories were to frighten children. Like the lights
Yeah.
would be off in our dorm room. We'd be about to go to sleep after a long day, and I'd just hear, "I heard the stories." And so anyway, so
That's solid
yeah,
work.
that's the Empress in my mind now.
That's correct. I think then I have two other like very, very tiny notes, but ones that I really wanted to highlight. One is that Tuon's like, I need to meet this dragon guy as soon as possible before he knows how dangerous I am to him. And that feels like a brand new detail. The other note that we have here that I really just need to say out loud is she has Ogier guards who seem to be not peaceful, but extremely vicious. And like loyal but giant axe is a thing that I'm very curious to see where it goes after reading just like that one sentence in this chapter.
Well, it'd been a hot minute since we heard the word Ogier,
Yeah.
right? Like I don't know that I could even. Is he in the Two Rivers? Where did we leave?
He ran away from his mom and is currently mapping where the way gates are across
He's just
places.
chilling, walking
Yeah.
around. And I found myself in my head making the mistake of going for the Nogri, which are in Star Wars expanded universe that are
Okay,
like
yeah.
kind of a little more stealthy than brute force. This is more like a Gamorrean guard from Star Wars, but yeah,
Well,
Ogier with
obviously.
axes sounds troublesome.
I got nothing else to add to that. I'm ready to see Ogier swing axes. That sounds fun. Last thoughts on what a veil hides before finally, after a book and a half, we can get back to Matt Coffin.
Well, I will only add that it does feel, as we alluded to in the intro to this episode, like this is the one piece that really pushes us forward. And it's not that it checks off a box in our like set of problems we got to solve, but just to get like seemingly a really ranking Shan-Chan here and start to have that plot line move to a
Yeah.
climax. It may still be 3 books from now, but it just felt to me like, okay, this feels like a second half of the series move. Like, so many references are like that, but it's like, oh, we're done fighting the outer pickets and now it's time to fight the general type of
You
thing.
guys, Greg just got excited about something and didn't say it'll happen this book. He said it'll happen in 3 books. He's starting to get Robert Jordan.
And I always in my head mentally, I'm like, wait, how many books are left? It's like, oh, right, still a full five.
Yeah.
Five and a half based on where we are in this book.
Oh, yeah. We got thousands of pages left, including chapter 15, In Need of a Bellfounder. Matt nervously fidgets as he talks to Aludra, insisting that the Shan don't care about fireworks because they can use damane to create what they call skylights. Matt is trying to convince her to tell him how to make fireworks, and then she suddenly demands he tells what he's heard. Matt says that he heard from Shan soldiers that the Illuminators Guild has been disbanded, but she says as long as there is one Illuminator, the guild lives on, and she is an Illuminator. He explains his plan not to throw fireworks directly at enemies, but instead to make cannons, using the example of the tubes she uses to launch her fireworks. She then gives him a puzzle. She says if he can tell her why she needs a Bellfinder, she will tell him all of her secrets. At this point, she sends him away, saying that she would kiss him if he didn't belong to another. Matt's clothes have apparently been taken from him so that Tylor can make an entire new wardrobe for him, including what he thinks of as an indecently short jacket. He limps his way to Luca's circus, where Matt notes that Valen Luca is one of the few who is able to keep horses because the Shan army has snatched up most of the others. He considers using Chel Vannin to steal the horses so he can escape because he wants to get out of the city, but he eventually decides against it. Tom and Beslan are there, and Matt overhears Ulver flirting with basically all of the women at the circus. Matt tries to convince him not to do this, but Ulver is very confused because he clearly learned to flirt directly from Matt. Matt then asks Tom if Luca has agreed to what he's asked, and Tom says that they can travel with Luca, but he doesn't plan to leave until the spring. At this point, Beslan says that his mother will be upset that Matt is trying to leave, and Ulver then says he wants to go back to the palace so he can spend time with Rizal, and we learn that both Tom and Beslan have a history with Rizal, and they look at each other kind of oddly. At this point, Matt feels the dice tumbling in his head, and he knows that something bad is happening, and he doesn't really want to go back to the palace. So, hey, Matt's back. That's really what this chapter was about. What did we think?
I thought a lot. First of all, trans people have rights and J.K. Rowling sucks. But I really thought about Neville in the back half of the 7th book, where our heroes in Harry Potter have been off doing other stuff and they come back and Neville has leveled up like 10 times and is like, hey, I'm leading a resistance now. And, in terms of the films, this is when all my female friends were like, and he got hot because he leveled up a lot in that regard too. But it felt like that, like, oh, Matt hasn't just been like lying under a building. He's been living it and kind of being in the Shan resistance. And it seems like we get a lot of hints that he's learning how to negotiate these problems and with the help of some fireworks still. So I like that. I would take a book of Matt Cawthon, resistance to the Shan, kind of like the Gore in Andor or, the French in the actual World War II history. That'd be really fun.
No, Star Wars. That's
Star
what we're
Wars
going to be referencing here. Yeah. No, and I think that's right. This is a really interesting place to pick up Matt, because as we kind of said, we left book 7 and 8 to a bit with like Rand just charging across Shan territory, just like destroying them, sending them back to the ocean. And so this could have been a very simple, like, Matt is in this city that's recovering after the war and what comes next. But instead, the chapter before clearly establishes, like, we have so many more Shan on the way. And so putting Matt in this position of kind of wanting to escape, but also wanting to resist, but still clearly being injured and having his ties to Tylor, like, it's just so messy in a way that I really appreciate, because so often Robert Jordan does kind of write plots that are designed to, untie themselves fairly quickly.
Yeah, and it's exciting to get him back in that regard, but also, like, again, I think I was really expecting, like, he stands up and staggers back. And so the fact that, again, he's been in this kind of hard, arduous think
Yeah.
actually feels a little bit like when Egwene was captured and we jumped forward
Oh,
like
yeah.
3 months there. It kind of feels like that, where it's like, oh, a whole life has been lived and this will have an effect on this character.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And I think we've got to spend a little time now thinking about like how is Matt different from where we left him? And I don't see too many signs in this chapter that Matt is like dramatically changed, but this I think you're exactly right to point out like that's the thing we should be thinking about is new Matt kind of different because a building fell on him is going to be an interesting question.
And I
It
was
would
almost
change me.
immediately looking for those signs that the old blood is still kind of
Yeah.
driving the bus at times, and there's not anything really dramatic here, at least. So then you get the kind of fun interplay between him and Ulthar, Uther,
Ulver.
Ulver, Ulver, which actually did feel like Andor, because Andor has that side character who just gets a girlfriend every
Yeah.
2 episodes, and it's like, oh, Ulver is that character, which is who he was when we left him, right? He was
Yeah.
already like flirting around, and then just the classic. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Man, I can get all the indie movies in tonight, but the classic moment where Indy and his dad realize they both slept with Elsa, which
Yeah.
is hilarious and essentially what happens here.
Talk about the fridge now. Talk about the fridge now.
I don't know what you mean. Oh,
It's Indiana
no.
Jones, Joe.
It took me, I went to fridging as in the like video
Oh.
game. I'm like, wait, one of the women died? Like what happened? Like I missed that. Yes, yeah, we'll get there. We can get there. Because there's no better line in Indiana Jones: The Last Crusade when I'm as human as the next man. I was the next man, Dad.
It's a great line.
Sorry,
So
this is not
I
an
think
Indiana Jones podcast.
it should be, mostly because I would hate that and it would be funny. I really want to take a moment to talk about Aludra, partially because where did she come from? Just out of nowhere is in this city now. But Matt picking up this kind of what do we do with fireworks evolution of the canon seems to be where he is now kind of headed towards. I found that to be really interesting, and it felt like a moment where Matt was more kind of motivated and not just kind of going with the flow the way he so often does. I think the only reason I get frustrated with Matt sometimes is that he just like feels like he goes along with whatever fate hands him and it's just like, "Oh, cool, now I can do this." Here it feels like he has a goal and he's working towards it and he is just relentless at it in a way I'm not sure we've seen much before.
It made me think, I'm just crazy on stupid references tonight, but it made me think about when you have a game like a Civilization where you're like, okay, I need to put these workers to develop this tree, whatever,
Yeah.
and it's like Matt's on the tree to get to gunpowder and to, cannons and like, you just imagine all the havoc some weapons like that could wreak in a largely seeming medieval world, right? So,
Yeah. Sorry.
and
As you're talking about civilization and a character inventing gunpowder, all I can think of is nuclear Gandhi. I don't know whether you are familiar with this. In the old Civ games, Gandhi had like a war. Every leader had how warlike they were, and Gandhi's was of course 0. But in that game, your warlike stat can go down. So if you did anything to lower his, it would go up to the maximum, and Gandhi would just like annihilate the world. So
Wow.
that's what's happening to Matt now. He went from
All
0 to 500, and we'll see what happens. Let's do this.
I mean, here for it, right? I mean, not that, but not,
right.
but like it's exciting, and I do think the fantasy series I read was the Ken Liu books, not the Cian Liu books, but his son did the Dandelion Dynasty, and that had a lot of like, what if we develop this weapon? How do you like change this over? I don't read fantasy books, but that's one that comes to mind.
Never, ever, ever. We're left with a riddle at the end of the Aludra plot. Why does Aludra need a Bellfounder? This feels like the kind of riddle that will be resolved 4 books from now, because I'm just going to one-up what you said in the last plot line. But do you have any thoughts about where you see this going other than explosive?
I mean, like the key ingredient to create gunpowder, or not just gunpowder, but but a new weapon, or maybe to stabilize it in some way, and so on. My kids and I this summer visited the USS Constitution, and we had to there's a part in the museum where you actually go through all the steps of loading a cannon. And so I was thinking about that, like,
Yeah.
there's in the cannons from this is War of 1812-ish, they had like a little sack of gunpowder, which was their way to kind of stabilize it. It's like that was actually a huge innovation to like
Yeah.
not be pouring gunpowder in, but to have like a little sack that will burn in instantly and catch on fire to kind of light it all. So it feels like something like that, kind of a
Yeah.
stabilizing agent.
No, and that makes a lot of sense. So we'll see what happens in 5 or 6 books, most likely. um, I think the thing that most surprised me here more than
Wait
anything
a minute, there
else.
aren't 6 more books. How dare you?
I think the next thing that kind of stood out to me here is Matt and Tylon. That relationship seems to be going, and it seems like Matt can do nothing about it, although he would love to escape. Just as a reminder, Tylon is the queen, and it just doesn't care whether Matt consents.
Well, and it's funny to get that right after we got like, oh, we got his actual betrothed on her way here. And so it's like,
Yeah.
oh, right. He's not like out living the single life. Because kind of in my memory, he was walking around asking everybody, like, do you know who the daughter of the Nine Moons is?
Yeah.
And so then it was like, oh, right. He got left in a kind of toxic situation. I don't know why I said kind of.
Is
toxic.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, your options in Robert Jordan's world are Tylon or pillow friends. So we've got some problems with the sexual politics here. I think you were right to highlight Oliver as just being funny, right? Like there's just a wonderful moment where he's confused why Matt's mad at him and Matt's confused where Oliver learned any of this. Other than that, I think we've just got like, hey, Tom's here. Hey, Luca's here. Hey, Matt's trying to leave town. Did you get anything kind of more out of the second half of this POV?
Just help me a little bit with Luca. Luca runs the circus that the girls came through, or is that a different circus?
That's exactly right. So
okay.
we've been with this circus before. So the last time that we were with it was with Elaine and Nynaeve heading west until they got to Saladar. Well, then continue west and they got to Ibudar here where they're now meeting up with Matt. And so that's why Tom actually knows Vale and Luca, is he was with Elaine and Nynaeve the last time they were with the circus.
Helpful. Cool.
So the big news here, Beslin still thinks that Tylon and Matt have a really great relationship. Tom says they can escape, but not until spring. And Matt knows that something's going to go wrong much sooner than that. What explosion / complication are you looking forward to here? And then, hey, guess what? We finished another episode of this podcast.
I mean, my whole mind was on the incoming Shan-Chan, right? Like, there's, I know they are further west than, like, they're not on the beachhead as this group arrives, but it's like, yeah, we know something really earth-shattering is coming, both for the continent and for Matt specifically. So that'll be fun. And I hope if we don't stick around in this plot line, I hope we at least come back to it fairly quickly. But I suspect we'll get at least a couple more. Maybe next week, because we're reading 3 full chapters, and I'm going to read them out because Tylor quickly had me scribble them before the episode started. So they are, of course, Chapter 16, An Unexpected Encounter, Chapter 17, Pink Ribbons, and Chapter 18, An Offer. All 3 of which could be tavern names? Sure. I would name my tavern An Unexpected Encounter, but we don't know. And we look forward to maybe getting more momentum or maybe slogging through a little bit more. Before we leave, I was contacted by a very, very angry listener this week who pointed out that in a recent episode, Tylor irresponsibly claimed that peach pits were only poisonous in the Robert Jordan universe. But it turns out, dear listeners, that peach pits are poisonous in our universe. We just don't eat them.
I'm deeply ashamed and will accept whatever punishment the community deems.
I'm sorry, RFK Jr. just emailed me. We had 5 listeners die because they weren't out and they said, Tylor said these aren't poisonous. I'm just going to chomp down on some peach pits.
Just ate whole peach pits.
So after they get on top of the explosive diarrhea, who knows when we're recording, they're going to come and get you for your peach pit imbroglio. So listeners, if you remember nothing else, do not eat peach pits in this universe. And if you choose to follow that advice, then you can join us next time through the glass columns.
My favorite outro ever.